And we are live. Welcome everybody to Lubbock Compact Live for Wednesday, June the 14th. I am your host, Adam Hernandez, here with my co-host, Josh Shankles. And we've got a couple of special guests with us here today. If you've seen the description of today's show, you might already kind of know what we're talking about, but we are talking about a petition initiative to decriminalize low-level marijuana possession here in the city of Lubbock. And so we're going to break all of that down. What does that mean? What is the petition initiative about? How is it going to happen? All of these good things. We're going to get into all of it. We have Kim here, who is the director of this initiative, which is called Freedom Act Lubbock. Cannon Roberts is the communications director for Freedom Act Lubbock. And so they're going to explain everything about it. And so for the viewers out there, just so you kind of know how Lubbock Compact is set up, it's actually two parts, two organizations. And so one of those is the Lubbock Compact Foundation, of which I'm the communications chair. Josh also sits on that board as well. We actually all sit on that board. We also have a 501c4, which can be involved in political activities. And that is called Lubbock Compact. And so there's Lubbock Compact Foundation and Lubbock Compact. And so under the Lubbock Compact 501c4, we have created what's called a specific use campaign committee. And that's a really fancy way to say it operates like a PAC. So you can raise money and use that money for political initiatives and things of that nature. And so that in a nutshell is how I guess the technical parts of this are done. And as I said, Kim is the director of Freedom Act Lubbock, and Cannon is the communications director of that. And so if you guys want to go ahead and introduce yourself and let them know a little bit about yourself.
So I joined the board of Lubbock Compact back in January and kind of hit the ground running with this idea for Freedom Act. I saw that several other cities in Texas did this last year, and others are trying to do it this year. And it seemed like something that made a lot of sense for Lubbock Compact to take on, because it's kind of aligned with some of our missions and goals. And so I brought the idea up to the rest of the board members, and they all agreed that this was something that we should do. And I just dragged them along with me through this idea. So, Cannon, do you have anything to add there?
No, I was tweeting out our the live stream link. Sorry, but no, like that. Yes, we talked about like trying to do this effort, getting people involved. I think one of our motivations here, and I might be jumping the gun a little bit, but one of our motivations is trying to show people that government can work for them, and that the apathy that we often see here in Lubbock is not effective. It doesn't change anything. And so I think we have a really good opportunity here to show people how being active, being aware, being involved can really help change lives.
Yeah, it's funny. This is a funny position for the show to be in, because we have to kind of sort of act like we don't spend a considerable amount of every week in each other's presence and also not talking about this very thing. But I think it's really important to break down what the organization looks like and how this all falls within it, and why we're kind of settling in on that, and remind our viewers of the mission of our organization being resolving disparity of all kinds, and that being driven by evidence-based policy solutions, and being driven by the popular will of the people, and what they want their government doing for them. And so those are all foundational principles in Lubbock Compact. And but yeah, a lot of people don't know that we're actually this two-pronged organization, and a good analog to consider is like the Sierra Club. People might be familiar with the Sierra Club. They use their charitable side to create programming that is environmental policy, and they use their advocacy side to advocate for environmental policy with government entities. And so Lubbock Compact is very much constructed like that, and that allows us this opportunity to look at what is a unique area of disparity in Lubbock. In this case, arrests and interactions with the criminal justice system that people are subject to because of this type of offense, and how can we address it with an evidence-based policy solution? And since Lubbock Compact has both of these arms, we're kind of uniquely situated to do that. Did I tie that up with a tidy bow?
Yeah, you did great.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, Kim, why don't you tell the viewers what Freedom Act is? Inform us all as if, it's our first time hearing it.
Sure. So we formed a committee, a specific use campaign committee, as Adam mentioned, which it primarily just acts like a political action committee, if you will. But you can run one of these underneath an umbrella of a 501c4. And so that's the way we're operating this. We have a committee of about 10 or 13 primary people that are helping us with this initiative throughout the city, just trying to get the word out and attending events. And right now we've been registering voters, focusing on that. One of the key parts of the initiative is that we'll have a petition later in the summer where we need to collect signatures of registered voters who are registered to vote within the city of Lubbock. So of course we would, preload that with some registered voters who are interested in our initiative. So we've been attending different events. We were out at Pride last weekend. We'll be at Juneteenth this Saturday, various events like that, registering voters and just spreading the word. But the way that we're able to do a initiative like this is there's something written into the Lubbock City Charter, which I know has been reviewed on the Lubbock Compact Live show many, many times. So our viewers are probably familiar, but in case you're not, the way this works is a citizen-led petition initiative is possible because the city charter language says so. And you have to have registered voters in the amount of 25% of the last voters in the most recent municipal election. And in this case, it would be the mayoral and city council election of last May. So there were about 19,000 and some change voters last May, which makes our target minimum number 4,800 signatures. And so we're actually going to overshoot that because we realize that some people will sign who aren't actually registered to vote in Lubbock. Some of the signatures perhaps won't be legible. Some of those are going to be thrown out. So we're going to overshoot it and go for about 7,500 signatures instead of 4,800. And we have to do all of this within a 60-day window of time. So we felt that it was important to kind of preload some of our work by attending a lot of events and, starting some social media pages and bringing awareness to the idea, so that once our petition window, that 60 days opens up, everybody already knows they need to come and sign. And when you do 7,500 signatures by 60 days, that's 125 signatures a day. So it's going to be a very busy period of time, and that's the reason we've started so soon in advance. Cannon, do you have anything to add to that?
No, that was a good explanation. I have nothing to add.
Well, Cannon, you've been out at a lot of the events and talking to a lot of people. I mean, obviously, we all have, but what is your read? What have you been hearing? What's the feedback you've been hearing? I guess let people know what are you hearing out there? What is the general feeling about this?
Yeah, like so like Adam said, we've all been out like doing our education. I tend to, when I show up to some of these events, I have a hard time leaving. I'm convinced as soon as I do, things are going to get interesting. So I was at our Pride table all day. And we're getting a really good response. Like there was only one person that was very adamantly like, no, like I'm not interested. And we were kind of like, oh, okay. But we were there from 11 in the morning until 7 in the evening. I don't know how many hundreds of people that we saw and we talked to. And pretty much everybody was supportive. You always have a few people that, again, it comes to this apathy. Like, we have been beaten down here in Lubbock for so long, and we've been told that this is the way things are. These are the people that make the decisions. You can't do anything about it. And so a lot of people in our community have really internalized it. And so even when we're at events like Pride, that very obviously push back to the mainstream of what people consider to be the mainstream, or what people consider to be the majority of people's thinking. Like, we're at this event that push backs on all that. And yet, even despite that, even seeing all those people there, people are still convinced that there's nothing they can do, and they don't want to get involved, and they're too nervous about it. And so, but that is not the majority of folks. The majority of folks we talked to were really excited about it. We're wanting to help. And another thing too is like we've talked to quite a few people that are not interested in participating. Like they're not cannabis users. They don't want to be cannabis users. They're often, you know, also not drinkers, but they're like, hey, I want to help with this. I'll even get you know, petition signatures. There was one guy specifically that was like, I'm not a user. He's like, but man, you know, I know so many people who are. He was like, so, and he signed up to volunteer with us. He said he would get a petition. And so I think we really have hit a point to where you know, I think a lot of times when definitely in the past that when you were a cannabis activist, when you talked about it, when you even said, I don't think people should get arrested for this, it was like, oh, well, we know who you are, we know why you think that. And I really think that's starting to change. And I really think people are starting to understand this as a civil rights issue, especially since if, you know, an hour and a half away, you can go to Hobbs and it's legal. You can buy, you know, pretty much all the cannabis you want. And so it's really ridiculous that, you know, that an hour and a half drive has such a drastic difference in the way we're treated by the government. And so I think a lot of people are starting to understand that and starting to see this, that this is a civil rights issue. And I think it is an issue that ties into the other issues that we're dealing with. It ties into the LGBTQIA issues. It ties into you know, tax discrepancy. It's all kind of all there in the same bubble. And I think if we start working together, if we start seeing this as a larger issue that we can work on together, we're going to see some change. So I'm really hopeful with all of this. I think, you know, we have work to do. It's not to say that we can like stop already and rest on our laurels, but I think we're going to see some really quick movement as we start getting these signatures.
Yeah, so you talked a little bit about, you know, you kind of touched on some of the reasons people you know, maybe partaking in this, or some people that kind of support it who don't partake in it. So maybe Kim can talk to a little bit about like what are some of the things that we've heard directly from people about why they may be using cannabis, because we know there's many reasons, and like you said, Ken, and a lot of times people are thinking it's just to get high or whatever, just to hang out and be a loser, but that's really not the case. And Kim, maybe you can talk about some of the things you've heard directly from the people about why they use personal marijuana.
Sure. For first, I want to touch on the fact that Cannon mentioned you can drive, you know, an hour and a half over to Hobbs and buy cannabis. There's 23 states in the United States now. If for our viewers who maybe aren't aware, 23 states where cannabis is absolutely legal. And so for me personally, I think it doesn't make a whole lot of sense that we're trying to police something that's legal, you know, in our neighboring states and in so many states within the union. But to Adam's question, so there was a girl that came up to our table on Saturday at Pride, and she shared her story. You know, she was diagnosed with epilepsy when she was a child, and she was told she'd never drive a car. She would, you know, all of these things in her life would be limited, and she would have this huge hindrance because of, you know, this disability of epilepsy that she has. And they put her on numerous pharmaceuticals to try to prevent her seizures, to try to, you know, prevent the issues that she was having with her epilepsy. And they just caused her other issues, you know. Every drug that you take, there's all these side effects, and she was sicker from her side effects than she was from her epilepsy. And it wasn't preventing her seizures. She was still having seizures. So she decided, I think she said 4 years ago, that she was going to wean herself off of the pharmaceuticals, and she was going to start to treat herself with cannabis and CBD oils. And she hasn't had a seizure. It must have been more than 4 years ago that she started weaning herself off, because I do remember she said she hasn't had a seizure in 4 years now. So now she's able to drive a vehicle. She was able to get her driver's license, and her quality of life is dramatically improved. And we've heard lots of stories like that. You know, people use cannabis for anxiety, for PTSD. We had another woman that came to the table Saturday, and she was a cancer survivor, and her doctor has prescribed cannabis to her for, some of the side effects of her cancer and her cancer treatment. And so this shouldn't be something that people are going to jail for when it's something that they medically need. This is medicine that they take that improves their quality of life, that makes them feel better, that lets them have a more, whole life. And it's unfair that someone could go to jail for that, just to have, to be rid of pain or rid of anxiety so that they can function.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Josh, go
I
ahead.
think that no, I think that breaks down some of these like use cases, like we see so many different things, and they fall along a huge spectrum of different medical and medicinal uses. That said, we're not trying to like stigmatize social recreational usage. Like humans are social creatures. They have complex and challenging lives. They do a lot of different things to unwind, and we're not trying to stigmatize that at all either. The fact of the matter is that as a substance, THC and the other cannabinoids are not sufficiently impairing to people's judgment or motor reflexes or anything like that, or general health, to warrant the type of policing or legal status that it has in our state and many states. And it represents an onerous overreach of the government. We know that now. And it also constitutes a colossal, because it is an overreach of the government and because it is so benign a substance, a material, it also constitutes a colossal waste of cash to police it and jail people over it and create a giant system of enforcement that is nonsensical, when we could very well be allowing people to use it for whatever their reasons are and having better control of it for those people for whom it should, for whom use is maybe a problematic area, and we can get into that a little bit. And of course, reap the tax benefit and revenue of it, and so that's one of the main reasons why we got behind it as an organization, is because it is evidence driven that we should solve this problem.
Josh, before you move on, can I add something real quick about that kind of the recreational?
Yes, and I also want to step back 1 second, but add yours, and then I want to take one step back because I think we've kind of missed something key. Go, Cannon.
Okay, so just talking about the recreational use there. I think another aspect of this, we saw, so this Texas Speaker of the House, Dade Phelan. We've all seen that video of him, seemingly absolutely wasted, drunk on, as Speaker of the House. Since then, I've seen on Twitter a lot of compilations of other state house representatives who seem very drunk while doing their job. So, to dismiss, the recreational use, like, yes, there are these medicinal uses. So like Josh, you were saying, like, we don't want to dismiss the recreational use. But the fact that our elected public officials can use alcohol while they're doing their jobs, while they're speaking to the public, and not get in any trouble for it, and have this kind of good old boy, like, oh, that's just what we do in the state house. Yet if somebody is caught with a gram of, marijuana or cannabis, they could.
Plant.
Yes, exactly. They could, theoretically, if it's an amount that small, even LPD doesn't always mess with it anymore. But at the same time, like they could be arrested, and they could, there are lifelong consequences that could happen while, all these elected leaders in the state house are just getting sloshed and trying to do their jobs. So
I think it's a more than fair point. Okay, wait, before we go any further, we're suffering from a classic case of people who have been swimming in this for a second. And I think it would be good. I mean, we already mentioned that Freedom Act is about the decriminalization of low-level marijuana possession, but I think we should really spell it out for folks, the exact contours of what it is that we're proposing. And I would stipulate before we even get into this that we don't have this written yet, and that part of the reason why we are interacting with the public is because we want to get a read on how they feel about this thing. You know, have we placed this right? So Kim, you know, whoever, Adam, Cannon, take this, tell the people what the contours of this proposal actually are. Go ahead.
So very similar to many of the ordinances that were passed last year in the other Texas cities. Ours will look very similar to that with some nuances. So basically what we're looking at writing into our ordinance is that if someone is stopped and they have 4 ounces or less of marijuana on their person, they won't be cited, they won't go to jail. So no ticket, no jail time. If they have paraphernalia on them, so this would be like a grinder or something of this nature, there would be no citation, there would be no jail. And that they also could not be stopped based off of the smell of marijuana alone. And so those are the key components that have been written into the other ordinances with the other cities that have passed, by the way, which passed overwhelmingly in those cities, usually like 68 to 74%. So it's been very popular in other places. Do you have anything to add?
Yeah.
No, the only thing from as far as that's in the ordinance in there is a call out specifically that if there's other, you know, if there's crimes being committed by this individual, this does
created a felony,
right, that created a felony or some
Yeah.
other type of investigation, this doesn't exempt them from that
Right.
investigation or anything like that. And so you can't, you know, just be a drug dealer and flying under the radar with this ordinance. And so there, I wanted to kind of spell that out for people so they know
Sure.
it's not just a free for all. Go
Yeah.
ahead, Josh.
No. I mean, I think that's exactly what I was going to ask. So this is like by, you know, and this is why it's important to kind of play through these scenarios. So somebody's driving recklessly, the cop sees that and pulls them over, they smell marijuana. This doesn't protect them
Right.
from reckless driving, from driving while intoxicated. Any of those other things could definitely come into play. Somebody has a taillight out and the police officer pulls them over to let them know, and they smell marijuana in their car. This is not going to add a citation to them and otherwise bother somebody that is not a problem, you know?
Correct. Yeah.
So, and then like Adam pointed out, you know, people engaged in other criminal enterprise, this doesn't protect them. This is meant to protect your moms and dads and grandmas and normal people who have chronic pain, who just, you know, picked up their re-up from their dealer and are headed home, you know, your normal non-criminal enterprise folks. Okay, why less than 4 ounces, Cannon?
So less than 4 ounces, because that tends to be kind of for personal use. If you do get over 4 ounces, if you start getting closer to a half pound or a pound, then it is more likely that you are, you know, you are doing this to distribute. That is your purpose, is to sell and distribute. And while, you know, while we are in support of this, this is a decriminalization effort and not a legalization effort. And that's really important. And we have had some people, you know, ask us that and even get, you know, confused as we're talking about it, that, you know, legalization is what New Mexico has. Legalization is being able to sell it. So this is not covering that. We can't do that as a city. Like, that has to be done on the state level. So what we can do at most as a city is this decriminalization effort. And so because it is simply decriminalization and not legalization, we do need to have those limits, because in the end, it is still illegal to distribute and to sell in the state of Texas. And so we have to work within the state laws. We have to make sure that this isn't going to be overthrown, you know, by the Texas Supreme Court. And so the way that right now that we're working on wording it, not only will it not only will it be able to stand and not get in trouble as a decriminalization effort, it should not come into any pushback to the new state house law that limits the ordinances that cities can give. And so the problem with that law that are well, I'll just move past that. But the problem with that law is that it focuses a lot on what you can't touch, like what you can't mess with, and it doesn't say like what is prohibited. So there's a lot of because the state house put out a list of, oh, okay, here's all these things that this law doesn't affect. And so it's everything from like lawn care to energy matters, but they're not saying what it does affect. And so I think what we're going to see is that when cities start putting in some of these ordinances, some of these state house rep and lawmakers are going to kind of pick and choose no, this doesn't affect that. Yes, it does affect this. However, because they have this list out that says, no, it's not going to affect these things. The penal code is one of those. And so this falls within that. And so that's kind of why we have this 4 ounce kind of maximum in place now.
Yeah, and Cannon, I want to add to that. You mentioned the questions about legalization versus decriminalization. We've had that. We've also had some confusion surrounding this. So we've heard a lot of people who thought, oh, well, in Texas it's already decriminalized, and it is, I guess technically, but
It's only 1 ounce or less.
yeah, it's 1 ounce or less. Oh, go ahead.
Well, so I can explain some of those details and why people think it's decriminalized. Hemp is what was decriminalized, and so a few
And I was
years
about to go there. Yeah.
Okay. Do you want to explain it or?
Yeah, I can.
Okay,
Yeah.
go for it.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah. No. So yeah. So it's 1 ounce or less. Like Cannon said, there's caveats there. But the thing also that this gets mixed up with is the Delta 8, the Delta 9, the things you can go down to a vape shop and get. That is legal, and this requires a little bit of explanation. So when it comes to the cannabis plant family, there's 2 completely separate plants. They look the same. If you saw them side by side, you couldn't tell the difference. One of them has the THC in it, which is the component that gets people high. That is the marijuana plant. The one that does not get people high is the hemp plant. And that one is used for many more things. It's used for fabrics, for foods, for all sorts of different applications. And so that is actually what the Delta 8s and Delta 9s are being derived out of. And it's only in a small enough amount that's allowed by law. And so it's a completely separate thing. And so, because we had a lot of those questions too, like, well, it's kind of already legal, isn't it? I go and get Delta 8 all the time. Well, it's a little more complicated than that. So just want to let folks know about that. Delta 8 is a completely separate thing from marijuana. And so that's one part of it. The other part of it is what this doesn't deal with. Like Cannon was saying, one of those things that's very important for people to know, because we have gotten this question and it actually made us look into it, and we have the answer for folks. So if you have a cannabis vape that's straight THC vape, that is not protected under this. And the reason why is this in particular protects class A through C misdemeanors. And right now, under the current law, those cannabis vapes are a felony. And so this would not cover a cannabis vape. Very important for people to understand that, so you don't get in trouble thinking that you're good to go. So just wanted to kind of point those 2 things out there. Cannon, did you want to add anything else to that?
Yeah, so one of the things that I want to add is I'm pretty sure this 1 ounce threshold that we're talking about is I don't think that is official. I think that is kind of just like what they're going with. And so the distinction here is so in the past, all that the police had to do is check to see if there was the presence of THC. all hemp has THC in it. So what they now have to check for is to see if it's under 0.04%. Like that is the maximum amount of THC allowed. There are only 2 labs in the state of Texas that can test for that, that amount. They're in Dallas, they're in Houston. So in order for those charges to stand, the city of Lubbock has to send off whatever they find to Dallas or Houston. There's a backlog. They have to test it, see if it's over that 0.04 amount. And so I think that's where that 1 ounce comes in, is because if it's under an ounce, they're not going to mess with it. It's just not worth it. However, I don't know, like if you make the police upset enough, it might be worth it, for their egos in the moment, to do that. And so I do think the 1 ounce is kind of up in the air, but that's the key there, is that 0.04% of THC. And so right now, what's keeping people from getting arrested is the lack of motivation to go and test it, to see if it's over that mark or not. And so right now it's more of a we're in a limbo, like nothing is set. And so that's what this will help take care of, is it will enshrine in Lubbock, at the very least, it will say, it'll just kind of put that into words and be specific, rather than kind of being kind of a unofficial way to go about it, to where, like I said, I think if our DA or a police officer gets upset enough, that they might go after somebody with less than an ounce.
Well, if you look at the online Facebook pages where they're posting people's mugshots and things like that, you see them every day where people get arrested for an ounce or less. And so I would tell people, if that's what you're relying on, it's really a dice roll. And there doesn't seem to be a science to it. It's just whoever they decide to arrest that day. We can tell you, because looking at the numbers, is that out of the arrests here in Lubbock, and this is another thing, another reason why Lubbock Compact would take something up like this, is because we deal with disparities here in the city. That's one of the things that we do. And so the arrests are disproportionately affecting people of color here in our community. And it's pretty much the same story everywhere else, but we have the numbers for here. And so the highest number of arrests for this, where it's just marijuana, nothing else going on, is Hispanics. So that one makes a little more sense in this scenario, because a huge part of our population is Hispanic. But where it starts to fall apart is the rest of it. And so when you look at Black people are 30% of those arrests, while only being 8% of Lubbock's population. And so that's a huge problem. And that's where you see it to start to break down. And then the last category, or not the last, second to last, is white people, much lower arrest rates. That doesn't necessarily speak to usage from any one community, because every community has people who partake in this. And so there's no overage of usage in other areas versus other areas. And so that's where it starts to break down. And obviously the last category would be anybody outside of those groups, which would be like Asian, Pacific Islander, or others. And so just a huge disparity in the arrests that are happening there. And Kim actually can probably speak a little more to this. She's got some of the data. And also, after you speak to the data, Kim, you or Cannon, one of you, can also talk about some of the partnerships that have kind of come about surrounding Freedom Act.
I believe Cannon has the reports over, so I'm going to let him do numbers, and then I'll do partnerships. Is that okay?
Yeah. Cannon? Yeah, nope, that totally works. So Adam had the numbers right. So between 2018 and 23, 47% of arrests were Hispanic, 30% were Black, and 23% were white. And so that's clearly not the way that our arrests break down. In total number of arrests in 2018, it was the highest at 710. And last year in 2022, it was 582. And this year, at the time that we got these numbers, so that's of
Yeah.
this year. So by March of this year, there were 125 arrests in the city of Lubbock for cannabis. And
Yeah,
so
and
that's
those are class A, B, and C misdemeanors. So those aren't, our drug dealers that are, moving a lot of marijuana. This is personal use marijuana charges.
yeah.
So
And
more than one a day.
Yeah. So that's, I mean, for the first 3 months of the year to have that many arrests of something that, is in this gray area at the moment. The other thing too is I think it's important to look at the age. And so 40%, a little over 40% of the arrests between 2018 and March of 2023 were of 18 to 24-year-olds. And a lot of these arrests can follow people for a really long time. And that for something to have that follow you for something that the majority of people, partake in and used, whether or not it's legal, the fact is that a big portion of our population, uses this. And so the fact that people just get caught when they're 18, when they're making those decisions, I don't think it's fair to have that follow us and follow the citizens of Lubbock. And so again, in that disparity, it is trying to deal with the racial disparity in these arrests, but it's also trying to deal, with the age and helping people make better decisions rather than just saying, hey, you were just unfortunate enough to get caught. You're kind of the demographic that we suspect. Having been in some of the business community and doing business networking, I know that a lot of our business folks in the city of Lubbock are users. But the fact is, because they don't meet those demographics, because they're not who you suspect, they can get away with it a lot easier.
And real quick,
Yeah,
before Kim gets into that, or before you go, Josh, another part to this is that we do have a large internationally known college here that people come to from all sorts of places, especially across the United States. A lot of them coming from places where this is completely legal. And so, as Cannon said, some of these arrests can really affect people. Obviously, the most economically disadvantaged folks, but also those college students who are, just starting to try to build their career and their life could completely be derailed by something if they live off campus. Now, campus has its own police, and that's a whole separate thing, but a lot of students do live off of campus. So just wanted to kind of also highlight that too.
No,
Yeah,
I
in
just
terms
wanted to
of,
get in a Oh, I just wanted to get in
go
a
ahead, Josh.
numbers situation edgewise, which is to say that, to this point about the amount of arrests that we've done, also in the last 3 months since we tracked this kind of thing, it would be important to note that LPD has mentioned that they're spending too many labor hours on things that don't matter and nobody cares about. The DA has reported a severe backlog and they're severely understaffed and not able to get through cases fast enough. And the sheriff's department has reported that we're spending a whole bunch of money on contractual obligations to buy extra jail space because our jails are overcrowded. Okay, Kim, go ahead.
Well, those things are very true. And I had them in the back of my mind to bring up. So I'm glad you got there, Josh. I'm not sure I would have gotten back around. So in terms of our partnerships, I think it's important for everyone to understand that we do have statewide allyship in this. There's organizations from outside of Lubbock that are willing to help us do this here in Lubbock. Ground Game Texas is one organization, and they have been instrumental in helping this pass in the other Texas cities where it has been successful. So we're partnering up with Ground Game. They're going to come to Lubbock and help us do petition work. They're going to help us with some of our logistics and behind the scene things, which we're super grateful for that partnership. Also, Texas Cannabis Collective. They are a cannabis lobbying group. Advocates. They often go to the Capitol and lobby for, cannabis law changes and things of this nature. And so both of those groups are not affiliated with Lubbock previously, but are very happy to come to Lubbock to help us partake in this. And then, of course, here locally, we have Hub City Normal, which is our local marijuana advocacy group that's been around for some time. And they've been including us in several of their events. They had 420 Fest back in April, which we were able to attend, and then their Global Marijuana March. And they're going to partner up with us with some things going forward when we get into our petition window, which I think we should talk more about.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to say, Josh. We
Yeah.
should probably start. If you have anything else to ask or add, we should probably do that now and then let Kim and Cannon get into next steps. What's coming up?
Proceed.
All right.
So we will form our petition window formally on August 18th, middle of August. And we're going to have a big kickoff rally on August the 26th, which is a Saturday. And we will be at Wagner Park over there in the Tech Terrace area from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. So we would like just literally 7,500 of you to show up that day and get it all out of the way. But we know that's probably not possible. So as many of you as possible, we'd love for you to come and sign the petition that day so that we could get a bunch of it taken care of. But we have a lot of events lined up over the next 60 days. We'll be at Red Raider Welcome on Texas Tech campus. There's several other events that are already happening throughout the city where we've been invited to come and participate, First Friday Art Trail, things of this nature. So we're going to try to be in all the places that you all are at to make it easy for you to sign the petition. Other things that are brewing, we have several businesses that have reached out to us willing to do petition work at their businesses. So a lot of the smoke shops, some tattoo places, various retail stores have offered to do petition work for us. So once we have all of that kind of lined out, it'll all be available on our website and on our social media pages. So you can go and, which whenever these places is closest to you or a place that you frequent, we want to make it easy so that you don't have to try too hard to search us out to sign the petition. Cannon, do you have anything to add?
Can people once the petition is open, can people get their own and collect their own signatures and things as well?
Yeah, absolutely. We'll have it available so you can download it and you can do a self-attestation. So we've had numerous people, even a lot of people at Pride on Saturday. And a lot of people have reached out to us on our Instagram page saying, I can get 100 signatures. And so we want to make that petition available to everyone so you can download it. You can take it around to all your friends, your coworkers, your family, your neighbors, whomever, your soccer team, whatever it is, and collect signatures and then turn that back into us. And then we'll be able to qualify the signatures and make sure that they're all valid. And we're going to kind of do this in real time as well. So we know exactly where we are on a, day by day basis. So we know once we've met a good threshold.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Go ahead.
Yeah. No, I was just going to say, so like the three pathways are that people are either going to see advertising on our social media, they're going to find us at an event and they're going to sign, or they're going to see things on our social media, they're going to have a petition that's out there at a business, at a location that's stationed out there, they can attend that and they can sign, or they can download their own form, do their own attestation, sign it and send it in, or more ideally collect signatures on behalf of the thing and drop that off at one of these locations or send it in. Just wanted to
got it.
relay that out. Okay, go ahead, Cannon.
So I was gonna do we want to talk about the process is going to go through after the petition, since it is likely because the signing the petition is not going to be our only action item. We will have a follow-up action. So the petition will start August 18th, so we'll have those 60 days. But then after we get the petition, if we get the signatures, and we are very hopeful, like we're very optimistic about it. It's going to take work. I don't want people watching this to say like, well, if they think this is going to happen, then we don't have to worry. It's going to take work, but we do think with the work, with the volunteers that we are able to bring in, that we'll be able to make this happen. And so after when we get that petition signed, we'll submit it to the city council, and the city council will have to vote on it twice. And we are expecting the city council to vote it down. We don't think that there is enough support of this for the city council to be behind it. But if our experience is any sign of the type of support the city at large has for it, there is a large enough population here in the city that supports it, that just because the city council votes it down doesn't mean, that it shouldn't happen. So after it goes before the city council twice, then it will go on the ballot, and we'll make sure that it becomes a ballot initiative. So that is going to be May of 2024. The election day is going to be May 4th. There will be 2 weeks of early voting. And so May of 2024, we're going to be calling on people again to go out and vote, and to vote for the ordinance, to vote for the decriminalization. And so those are unless the city council just shocks us and because we're able to get those signatures, they say, hey, let's go ahead and support this, but that just seems unlikely. So we'll be needing people's help again, and we'll be needing you to go out in May of 2024.
Yeah, and to your point, Cannon, even in the other cities where this has passed overwhelmingly by vote, none of those city councils approved it there either. So in all of those cities, they did petition work. It was read by city council, voted on, lots of people came out and gave public comments. The city council said no, and then it was put on a ballot for a vote. And at that point is when it passed overwhelmingly in, 5 out of 5 cases. So we don't anticipate anything different for Lubbock. We think that's exactly what's going to happen here. And we're fully prepared to ask the city secretary to put it on a ballot next February. And so that would be that May 4th vote that Cannon mentioned.
Yeah, and just to get on my soapbox again about being involved, I think the fact that in every one of these cities, it has passed, and it has often passed overwhelmingly, yet the elected officials are not supporting it. I think that's very telling, and I think it's because in local elections, we all know that voter turnout is often so low. It is sadly, low. We're all a little depressed when we see those numbers. And so because of that, especially our municipal elected officials don't often actually reflect the values and support the initiatives that most of the city supports. And so I just think that's another sign that we need to be more involved. We need to pay more attention. And we need, as a community, to get used to, going out and voting and being present and asking for what we want. We talk to so many people, whether, no matter what the initiative is we're working on, whether we're talking about like the United Development Code, the UDC, we're talking about amortization and trying to get industry out of North and East Lubbock. So many people say, yes, this is a good thing. That's something we want. There's no reason to ask for it. Nothing's going to happen. There's no reason to try. And so, but clearly, if these other cities can get these ordinances passed, can get these decriminalization efforts, if we can do that, we can do these other things. We can try to push for amortization, maybe in a ballot initiative the same way, maybe doing petitions, or better yet, elect better officials who actually reflect our values and what
you never get what you don't ask for.
Yeah, and I will just to add to this, because we hear this so much from people where they say, oh, we've tried that. And we have not tried that. I'll say it every single time this topic comes up. We have not tried that. We, meaning all of the people that never get the things that we want from our city council, and we're constantly complaining about it and never getting it. That's who I'm talking about. When you look at the people who vote every single time, the vast majority of them come from 2 districts. Our city has 6. Those 2 districts are districts 4 and 5 in the extreme south of the city. Those are the 2 that are going to show up at 93% every single election. A good chunk of the same 20,000 that shows up every May are those folks. And that's the reality of it. That's the actual math of it. And none of us, no matter how hard we try, can argue with the math of it. And so that's the reality of the situation. Now, just by simple math, if we have 6 districts and only 2 are showing up and making all the choices, 4 is greater than 2. And so if the 4 show up, the 2 don't run every show. And so when we look at for instance, in 2009, when the city made packaged alcohol sales legal within the city limits, and I'm sure a lot of the viewers will remember having to drive out to the strip to get your alcohol for the weekend or the week or whatever. Now, the reason why that was is because funny enough, or sadly enough, however you want to look at it, in 2009, in the new millennium, Lubbock, one of the biggest metro out here in this area, still wasn't legal to have packaged alcohol sales in the city. So when that was going on, I don't know if you all remember, I do remember catching some of this on the news, and there was a whole set of people, again, same voters from the districts in 4 or 5 area, who were saying that we were going to let the devil in the city if you made it legal. Demons were going to rain down from the sky. All the kids are going to be drunk and hanging off of the buildings. And there's, all of this crazy stuff, right? But the city showed up in that particular May election when normally only 20,000 show up. And that's been for a long, long time. 50,000 people showed up for that election and it passed. And guess what? All those demons falling from the sky, people and all of that, they did not repeal that. It's still legal to have packaged alcohol sales in the city of Lubbock. So
And that one also passed with over 70% of the vote.
yeah, and so if we pass this, very low likelihood that somebody will try to repeal it if it's done by a vote of the people. It's just not what we do here in Lubbock. And beyond that, just one last thing, like Cannon was saying, you wouldn't have these issues over and over and over and over if we would show up every May. Not in 2 ways. Not only to vote, because if you show up in May and all of the people that you have to choose from are the people that are going to do the same thing, that doesn't motivate you to vote. So I get it. We get that part. The other side of the equation is that people from other parts of the city need to step up and run for office, because we have plenty of capable people and people who would have the time and dedication and energy to do that, who just don't step up. And so we don't have different options. And so that's the other part of the equation. And so we've got to show up to vote and we've got to show up to run for office. And if we did that with any kind of consistency, this place would be much better off for it, if I do say so myself. And so
after we've showed up to vote, we've still got to bother them and keep the pressure on them. Unfortunately, that's what representative democracy requires. And we're here to help you with that. That's why Lubbock Compact exists.
Exactly. Can I add one thing about the packaged liquor sales? The other thing too with that is that before 2009, one of the main groups that was stopping Lubbock from legalizing liquor sales were the liquor companies, because they loved the fact that they could go to one place for a city of, at the time, Lubbock was probably about 150,000. So we're bigger now, but, they could go to the biggest city in our area and all of their delivery guys just had to make one stop and that was it. And so they were willing to have a fewer sales because it was cheaper to do that. And so a big part of the money and the push to keep Lubbock from legalizing alcohol sales in the city limits was from the big corporations. It was not so, because I think the other thing that happens is we decide if things are this way, there must be people who care about us making those decisions. And so while there were the people that were like, oh, the demons are going to be let in and all that, there was also the group that was saying, we make more money off of you if you do it this way. By making it less convenient for you, we get more money. And that was a big reason it took till 2009. That often gets overlooked. And so that's the other thing is like, a lot of times there are groups, there are companies, there is money behind some of the things that we don't like because it gets somebody else, usually people who aren't in Lubbock, it makes them more money. And so they can make more money off of us if we do these certain things. So I'm not necessarily saying that like, that's what's keeping the decriminalization from happening. But I do think when you're not involved, when you're not paying attention, that allows for these other groups that are that are just trying to get more money out of us, just trying to get us, to work for cheaper, whatever it is, that allows them that space to make decisions that go against our, that aren't better for us, that are better for them and not us.
This is a whole other can of worms, Cannon, that you just brought up, so I'm not going to get too far into it, but I'm going to say this is why marijuana is not legal at the federal level, because the pharmaceutical companies are making way more money off of all of these ailments that people could be treating themselves with cannabis for. That's all I'm going to say.
Well, we are at
Indeed,
7:58. Yeah, we are at 7:58.
Yes.
Josh, did you have something to add?
Yeah, no, I was
Oh.
gonna say nobody would prefer for it to remain illegal more than other criminal enterprise.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, so real quick, before we shout out the social media and all of that good stuff for Freedom Act Lubbock, we do need to take our pause to do our community resource spotlight for the week. And so I'm going to run through that real quick. And the community resource spotlight for the week is the city of Lubbock's own community centers. And if you don't know, there's several of these across the city. And so you can look up on the city website to find out where the one is that's nearest to you, but they're all over the city. And Lubbock's, and so usually at these locations, there's typically a community center and a senior center. And so that's also good for folks to know. They provide all sorts of programming for seniors to have activities for them, so they're not just sitting at home bored doing nothing or watching TV. They have food and things like that a lot of the times, and so a great place to go. But these are clean, attractive facilities that you can go to. They've got classes. You can learn how to cook, learn how to draw, teach your youngsters gymnastics and dance. They have exercise classes. You can even rent these facilities. We've rented them for various events and things that we've had and conferences. As a matter of fact, we had Ricky Sherfield on, who does the Black Business Expo. They do that at one of the community centers. And so many different things you can do there. The prices are very reasonable. I think it's like $35 an hour or something like that, or maybe 50. I can't remember, but it's very reasonable. And these are large spaces typically. And then many of their special events that they have at the community centers themselves, just various events that take place there, are usually free. I don't know that I've ever paid for anything going to the community centers. They also do have meeting rooms and recreation areas. So if you need to have a private meeting with somebody, or if you need to have some sort of business meeting or anything like that, anything, family reunion, weddings, whatever you want to do. So you can call any of those centers and speak to the people there, and they can get you set up. Or you can just go to the city website where underneath the Parks and Recreation page, and there's the facilities page, and then you'll find the community centers there. And so that is our community resource spotlight of the week. And we are a little over time, so Kim or Cannon, whichever, give everybody the social medias for Freedom Act. Tell them the website, tell them how they can support, and what does Freedom Act need?
Sure. So we are on Facebook and Instagram. You can find us at Freedom Act Lubbock on both of those platforms. We also have a website. It's freedomactlubbock.org. If you go to the website, you all should go to the website. You can sign up there for notifications about the petition. So if you go there, you can just enter your name, your basic contact info. We promise not to spam you with a lot of info, but we will let you know when the petition is live and where we're going to be. You can also, follow the social and the website, because we'll have all of those events listed out there. So you'll know where to find us in the community. And just like any campaign, we need money to make this happen. So all of our outreach, the advertising that we're doing, the materials that we're printing, that all does cost a little bit of money. And so we have an Act Blue. You can go, we'll drop this in the comments, or maybe share it on the page, but there's a Freedom Act Lubbock Act Blue. We have a PayPal account, which is just at Freedom Act Lubbock. Same thing for Cash App. It's just Freedom Act Lubbock. We tried to keep those all consistent there so that you could find us easily. Cannon, anything to add?
Nope. That's good. You got it.
All right.
Okay. Well, we will it's probably just best at this point if we post the link to the Act Blue and all of that good stuff on the page. So we'll get that up there.
We'll add
Go
one
ahead.
thing. We do have some Freedom Act Lubbock swag that you can purchase too. So if you know want to help us out but would like something, you know, in exchange for your money, we have two different types of t-shirts that we sell when we go out to our events. If you're interested in those, you could reach out to the Facebook or the Instagram page and we can hook you up with that. Those t-shirts are $25 each. And then we have some Freedom Act Lubbock stickers that are $3 a piece. So that's something, another way that you could support us and get something for your donation.
Yep. Awesome. I think we've said it all. And so this is the time when I remind everybody to join your neighborhood association. That is an easy way to start to get involved. If you're a little intimidated by just jumping straight into getting involved in public things, really easy way to do that is just to start showing up to your neighborhood association meetings, and you'll get all sorts of information. You'll get help and guidance. And so that's why I always remind everybody to do that. There's several across the city. And that's my spiel on that. We'll see you next time right here on Lubbock Compact Live. Good night, everybody.
Good night.